Welcome back to This Week in Weed. Let's get right to this week's top headlines. The use of cannabis is associated with lower mortality risk in patients with schizophrenia and related psychotic disorders, according to a forthcoming study to be published in the Journal of Psychiatric Research. An international team of investigators from the University of Maryland School of Medicine and a university in South Korea assessed the impact of a lifetime history of substance use on mortality in 762 subjects with schizophrenia or related disorders. Researchers reported, "We observed a lower mortality risk adjusted variable in cannabis users compared to cannabis non-users, despite subjects having similar symptoms and antipsychotic treatments." Authors speculated that the association between marijuana use and decreased mortality risk may be because cannabis users may be higher functioning, and because cannabis itself may have some health benefits. They concluded, "To our knowledge, this is one of the first studies to examine the risk of mortality with cannabis and alcohol in people with psychotic disorders. This interesting finding of decreased mortality risk in cannabis users is a novel finding, and one that will need replication in larger epidemiological studies." Governor Lincoln Chafee signed legislation into law last week authorizing the creation of state-licensed compassion centers to engage in the production and distribution of cannabis for authorized patients. It is the second time since 2009 that state lawmakers have approved legislation allowing for the state regulation of medical marijuana facilities. Under the new law, Senate Bill 2555, health regulators will license 3 not-for-profit entities known as compassion centers to operate within the state. Compassion centers will not be allowed to cultivate more than 150 cannabis plants on the premises at any one time, only 99 of which may be mature. Centers will also be restricted to possessing no more than 1,500 ounces of usable product at any one time. Lawmakers have suggested that the imposed statutory limits will lower the likelihood of federal law enforcement officials interfering with the implementation of the law. At least one other state, New Mexico, imposed similar caps on authorized dispensaries. State lawmakers initially enacted legislation allowing for the authorization of compassion centers in 2009. However, Governor Chafee suspended the law in 2011, stating, "Large-scale commercial operations such as Rhode Island's compassion centers would be potential targets of vigorous criminal and civil enforcement efforts by the federal government." Earlier this year, Governor Chafee agreed to revisit the issue and to work with lawmakers to amend the law so that a limited number of small-scale distribution centers could apply for state licenses. In response to the legislature's actions, U.S. Attorney Peter Norenha has said he will continue to oversee the enforcement of federal drug laws. However, he has not specifically said whether compassion centers will be targeted. That's it for This Week in Weed. Be sure to check back every Thursday for the latest stories in marijuana law reform.